The Netanyahu, he went ahead and shot his mouth off in October 2015. The Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, he claimed that Hitler at the time was not thinking about exterminating the Jews in November 1941, but he only wanted to expel them. And that was up until when the Grand Mufti, al-Husseini, inspired Hitler to embark on a program of genocide, right, a program like the theater, to prevent them from coming to Palestine. So for Netanyahu, it was a Palestinian leader, not Adolf Hitler, that killed all the Jews. He made this claim to argue that the Palestinian Arabs, they're never really angry about any specific acts taken by the Israeli government, but they just hate Israel itself. Right, because Israel could do no wrong. How about the Christmas massacre of Bethlehem in 2008, 2009? What about the 2014 massacre of Bethlehem? 300 kids killed in the first one, 551 kids killed in the second one. That's Netanyahu. Bethlehem, that's the birthplace of Jesus Christ. So Jerusalem and Bethlehem are holy cities for Christianity too. So are the Christians even being represented in this conversation? Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, said that it was the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, that was his title, the Grand Mufti. The Grand Mufti, he's the one that persuaded Adolf Hitler and the Nazis to carry out the Holocaust, right? So people are criticizing Netanyahu, saying that quote essentially says that Netanyahu hates the Palestinians so much he's going to absolve Adolf Hitler of the Holocaust. It wasn't Hitler's fault. It was that one Palestinian guy. Remember that one Palestinian guy that talked to Hitler? Yeah, that's why it all happened. So, okay, Netanyahu, you fucking Yahoo.
I have the most progressive record of anybody running.
Mr. President, I will vote to authorize the use of military force against Iraq. I do not believe this is a rush to war. I believe it's a march to peace and security.
I do not view abortion as a choice and a right. I do not vote for funding for abortion. The concept of busing, that we are going to integrate people, is a rejection of the whole movement of black pride.
Both political parties will understand the need for more police officers, of more prisons.
We have predators on our streets. We have no choice but to take them out of society.
I don't think 500 billionaires are the reason why we're in trouble. The folks at the top aren't bad guys. I have the most progressive record of anybody running.
I'm Mike Gravel, and I approve this message.
So, no, Hitler didn't hate the Jews on his own. No. It wasn't any of his advisors or no German people, no popular authors of the day. It's because of this little Palestinian guy, right? The Grand Mufti. Until the Grand Mufti came into the picture, Adolf Hitler only kind of hated the Jewish people just a little bit. But after the Grand Mufti, well, he really hated the Jews after that. So, well, maybe it was a Swede, maybe it was a Dane, maybe a Gypsy or Finnish, Russian or Alabamian. Who knows who convinced Hitler to, engage in the Holocaust? It could have been anybody. Not himself, right? He wasn't evil just because of the child abuse he endured. He wasn't just evil because he shot his dick off in World War II or World War I. Or shot half his dick off in one testicle. No. I'm sure that isn't why Adolf Hitler was evil as shit. Not his advisors. It was the Grand Mufti. The Grand Mufti is why Hitler holocausted the Jews. Clearly that's stupid. Clearly that's absolutely wrong. Clearly Israel is doing shit to Palestine. They don't just hate them because of their Jewish ways. I'm sure there are anti-Semites out there. So none of his advisors, none of foreign leaders or influential authors, none of these people, right, is the Grand Mufti.
My big idea is universal pre-K.
I'm Pete Buttigieg, and my big idea is to strengthen American democracy through better voting and representation for all Americans.
I am Kamala Harris, and my big idea is raise teacher pay.
I'm Kirsten Gillibrand, and I'm running for President of the United States. My big idea is paid family leave.
I'm Elizabeth Warren, and I want to cancel student loan debt and provide for universal free college. Yeah.
I'm Amy Klobuchar, and my big idea is to fight addiction and treat mental health.
My big idea is baby bonds.
I'm Andrew Yang. I'm running for president in 2020, and my big idea is a freedom dividend of $1,000 a month for every American starting at age 18.
My idea is to ensure that we have a new Voting Rights Act.
My big idea is to bring peace and prosperity to this country by ending these wasteful regime change wars.
What's your big idea?
Medicare for all.
Okay, all right. So nobody from Bavaria, nobody from the Northwest Rhineland or Munster or Berlin or Nuremberg. It wasn't Hitler himself. So this is all from Netanyahu. And Netanyahu is a well-known right-wing racist. He hates the Palestinians, and he hates, M and A. What's M and A? Well-known hates Palestinians. He hates Muslims, and he hates the Arabs, okay? So he's a racist. He's a racist. So I'm sure Netanyahu, a right-wing politician, I'm sure he's a fantastic historian. I'm sure he knows his history, very good. So he's a racist. He hates the Arabs. He threatens them, intimidates them from going to the election polls. These are the citizens of Israel. So not, even talking about Palestine, but Arabs in his own country. He wants to annex the West Bank. Well, that's World War III right there. There's nuclear Holocaust. That's going to break the Jewish theocracy. Remember Salem. Salem broke America's Christian theocracy. We believe in the separation of church and state because you have a freedom of religion. You can be Christian, Buddhist, whatever the other religions are. You can be a Christian, Buddhist, or, agnostic if you're just like, you're just not sure of anything, or, just be an atheist because that's the truth. There is no God. There's nobody up in the clouds. What are you talking about? Well, the world doesn't have enough love as it is, and you're giving it to some imaginary person. So God, Jesus Christ, is the Santa Claus for adults. So religion is just stupid. But Salem broke America's Christian theocracy. So we have the Establishment Clause. So the government must remain neutral when it comes to religious matters. Now, when the Christians of America started murdering women because they were witches, it's like, okay, maybe we shouldn't put the Christians in charge. Now, there's good and bad Christians. There's a lot of bad Christians. There's the KKK, Hitler, Mussolini, the Russian czars. They're all Christians of Crusades. That was killing a lot of Muslims. The Spanish Inquisition, that was killing Jews. So Christianity has its fair share of bloodshed throughout history. The right-wing Catholic Church for thousands of years, the Dark Ages. Christopher Columbus, genocided 500,000 Taino people. He was also a piece of shit. He was a child-raping piece of shit. So Christopher Columbus, Christian. Then you had Hitler, Christian. Mussolini, Christian. KKK, Christian. And then in Salem, Massachusetts, whenever one of the women were, flying around on their broomsticks and, having magic potions and turning people into cats and dogs and flying around on their broomsticks and dropping down the chimney and giving everybody presents or whatever witches do. So that's when they started murdering witches, and that's when people are like, okay, maybe we shouldn't let the Christians be in charge. Maybe we should have a secular government that's based on law. When it comes to the law, you got the Constitution and you got your state code. So read your state code, read your constitutions, read your federal code. We got two governments, so you got to read two constitutions, two codes, then you should know all the laws of the land. So there you go. There, I went ahead and dispelled the myth of law. You want to know what's going on in this world? Don't just go with religion's simple explanation. Actually find out what the hell is actually going on around here. So the constitutions and the codes.
Second, we've got to restore the relationships that he's destroyed with our allies. Not just in Europe. He flew to the G20 last night and attacked Japan, Germany, and a third ally of ours without saying anything about North Korea or Russia. And when you've got a situation where you have a president who says something happened in the Straits of Hormuz and the whole world doesn't know whether to believe it or not, that is a huge problem when it comes to the national security of the United States of America.
So why would anybody listen to Netanyahu? Why would anybody listen to Netanyahu? He insisted that Adolf Hitler only wanted to expel Jews from Europe. So not only is he a right-wing, warmongering piece of crap, a racist piece of crap, he's sitting there saying that it was the Grand Mufti who told Adolf Hitler to burn them. His full quote is this, and this is from Netanyahu's own website. He's quoting himself, what he had said to the 37th Zionist Congress, October 2015. So this is Netanyahu. Hitler didn't want to exterminate the Jews at the time. He wanted to expel the Jews. And Hajj Amin al-Husani went to Hitler and said, if you expel them, they'll all come here, meaning Palestine, Israel. What should I do then? Hitler exclaimed. Husseini said, burn them. So Adolf was aloof, didn't know what to do on the Jewish question, but that one Palestinian, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, showed Adolf the way. Burn them, he said. Burn them. So there's, I can see how that conversation could take place, because they're both racist. They're both anti-Semites. Hitler was an anti-Semite. The Grand Mufti was an anti-Semite. In fact, the very first thing that he says in his conversation is that we have the same enemies: the English, the Jews, and the communists. So we both hate the communists, we both hate the Jews, and we both hate the English. That's what the Grand Mufti said to Adolf Hitler. So the Grand Mufti is a giant anti-Semite. Hitler is a giant anti-Semite. Could this theoretical conversation have taken place? It could have. There's no evidence of it taking place. I have no idea where he got his information. He didn't reference his sources, so he is less reliable than Wikipedia. So I'd like to know where he got this information from. To me, it sounds like fake news. Okay, historical fiction. This is a bunch of fake news. So the Grand Mufti was a giant anti-Semite. So it's possible the conversation could take place. So I think that's why, essentially Netanyahu is absolving Hitler, saying it's okay that, Hitler did his crimes because it was really a Palestinian that had told him to do it. And then he's also putting it all on the Palestinian people and saying it's all Palestine. They just hate, the entire, Jewish faith and the Jewish religion and everything Jewish. So was Hitler. So the Mufti, he had explained his understanding of the final solution. So this is his understanding of the justification for the final solution. He said, in return for the Balfour Declaration, the Jews took it upon themselves to serve the British in their policies and to invest their best efforts so the British could win the war. For this reason, the Jews played a central role in sabotage and destructive propaganda in Germany at the end of World War I. This is the fundamental reason for Hitler's war against the Jews and his intense hatred for them. They brought down disaster on Germany and caused its defeat in World War I. Okay, so what a fucking anti-Semite. What a giant, horrible, terrible, shitty fucking human being. Right? So he's an anti-Semite. He's sitting there just saying, well, Hitler, the Jews did everything in World War I was the fault of the Jew. So in the movie Rise of Evil, Adolf Hitler said, never forget the Jew. Like, always hold on to them, always blame them, always scapegoat them. In the movie Rise of Evil, check it out. Great depiction of, the piece of shit that is Adolf Hitler. So they related to each other because they hated the Jewish people. So I could see a conversation saying, hey, what's up? What's going on with you? I don't know. I hate those damn Jews, Oh, yeah, well, me too. Oh, you hate the Jews? Oh, yeah, I hate them. I hate them a bunch. Cool. Hey, I got a pickle in my pocket. You want an extra pickle? I got ding dong. You want some saltine crackers? There's a conversation that could have happened. They're just fucking racist, being, piece of shit racist. So, like I said, Nietzsche said all anti-Semites should be shot. all racists, anybody that just judges people by, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. So anyone who judges books by their covers and discriminates against them and says, you know what, all people of this color, all genders of this kind, all people of this age, all people from this country, all people of this way, this religion, they're all this way. Fuck those people. Another conversation, Hitler, right, just, hey, guess what, Mufti? Hey, what's up, Grand Mufti? You know I only got one testicle? Yeah, I got my dick and testicles shot off in World War I. Basically a dickless man with only one testicle. Why are you telling me this, Hitler? I just want to see how you reacted. Okay, funny. Hey, look, Hitler. Why do you show me that? I don't know, I just wanted to see your reaction. I could see both of those conversations taking place. So, Netanyahu, fuck Netanyahu's fake-ass news bullshit. It wasn't the Mufti. If you look at history, it's not the Mufti who convinced Hitler to Holocaust the Jews. You know where you can find that out? Where you can figure out why Hitler come up to history. You can look at history, right? So, for shits and giggles, I'm going to go through history. But I'm going to actually go to the meeting first. So let's talk about Mufti and Hitler. What did they talk about? Because from this meeting, you actually can glean from it that it wasn't the Mufti that had convinced Hitler to, do the Holocaust. So, for Netanyahu, it was the Grand Mufti. He caused the Holocaust. He's responsible for Hitler's final solution. The Grand Mufti he's responsible for the KKK lynchings, the swine flu, bird flu, bubonic plague. The Grand Mufti is the reason for all the world's evils today. So even though Hitler came up with it, maybe his advisors executed the final solution. He plotted it, and he did it, but he's not to blame. No, no, no. So he's going to absolve Hitler. Netanyahu absolves Hitler of the Holocaust, the most gruesome, deplorable aspect, the murder of the Jews. So if you actually look at the official German transcript of the November 28, 1941 meeting, Hitler contains, the meeting with Hitler and the Mufti, that contains no support for Netanyahu's assertion. So it's fake news. Netanyahu spouting off fake news. So the first thing the Mufti had said that he and the Arabs and Hitler and the Nazis all had the same enemies, the English, the Jews, and the communists. The full German record of the meeting between al-Husseini and Hitler, November 28, 1941, was published, 50 years ago, and it's online. Everybody could read it. On the meeting, Adolf Hitler, Mufti, had requested backing for an Arab independence and support and opposing the establishment in Palestine of a Jewish national home. Hitler did not want an Arab revolt. Not yet. He didn't think an Arab revolt would succeed. So he wanted, backing for an Arab independence, and he did want him to destroy Israel. There were some Jews in Jerusalem, and he didn't want the national homeland to be re-established. So, this is the Mufti trying to wipe Israel off the map. But that's like Israel trying to wipe Iran off the map. So the rhetoric on both sides is ridiculous. So this is in Berlin, in Germany. Eventually, Grand Mufti, he's all over the place. He was in Syria, Egypt, and then he eventually gets to Germany, and they meet November 28, 1941. So if the Third Reich had taken Palestine over, the Grand Mufti would have been put in charge. And it was close that Israel was wiped out because Rommel was in Egypt and they nearly conquered the Middle East. I don't know, something. So the Nazis almost wiped out Jewish Israel. Now, the Grand Mufti, in his conversations, he did want Adolf Hitler to publicly declare that the elimination of the Jewish homeland in Palestine needed to be wiped out. Well, Hitler already hated the Jews. That was already part of the plan anyways. So he, requested for more, Arab independence. He wanted some military support. He also wanted Hitler to say that he wanted to wipe out the Jews of Palestine. The Mufti is a piece of shit. He plans to build a crematorium, and I hate that word. Isn't that the nastiest word in the English language? A crematorium, where you throw a bunch of people in and you just cremate them and murder a bunch of them. A crematorium, it just feels like you're making ice cream. A crematorium. So the Mufti wanted to build a crematorium for the Jews in the Dothan Valley in Samaria. In 1941, Simon Wiesenthal alleged that Eichmann had accompanied Husseini on an inspection tour of both Auschwitz and
Talk a little bit about what Mr. Yang is talking about, and you just actually mentioned it. Many Americans are worried that things like self-driving cars, robots, drones, artificial intelligence will cost them their jobs. What would you do to help people get the skills they need to adapt to this new world?
We must always be a country where technology creates more jobs than it displaces. And I've seen the anxiety across America where the manufacturing floors go from 1,000 to 100 to 1. So we have to modernize our schools, value the teachers who prepare our kids, wipe the student debt from any teacher that goes into a community that needs it, invest in America's communities, especially where places where the best exports are people who move away to get skills. But Jose, I was 6 years old when a presidential candidate came to the California Democratic Convention and said, it's time to pass the torch to a new generation of Americans. That candidate was then Senator Joe Biden. Joe Biden was right when he said it was time to pass the torch to a new generation of Americans 32 years ago. He's still right today. If we're going to solve the issues of automation, pass the torch. If we're going to solve the issues of climate chaos, pass the torch. If we're going to solve the issue of student loan debt, pass the torch. If we're going to end gun violence for families who are fearful of sending their kids to school, pass the torch.
Vice President, would you like to sing a torch song?
I would. I'm still holding on to that torch. I want to make it clear to you, look, the fact of the matter is what we have to do is make sure that everybody is prepared better to go on to educate for an education. The fact is that's why I propose us focusing on schools that are in distress. That's why I think we should triple the amount of money we spend for Title I schools. That's why I think we should have universal pre-K. That's why I think every single person who
Danick and the Mufti praised the hardest workers at the crematorium. The Mufti, ironically, he wrote his memoirs down. They're actually an antidote against Holocaust denial because the Mufti said that he knew about the Holocaust and he was bragging about it in 1943. So if he had convinced him to do the Holocaust, how come he didn't know about it until 2 years later? So the Mufti was completely ignorant that the actual Holocaust was going on. He didn't know about it until 1943. But Hitler had already made the decision 6 months prior. 6 months prior to the meeting. So the Netanyahu had said a half-truth. Netanyahu, he had said that Hitler's policies, since 1938, was to expel the Jew, to exile the Jew, to kick all the Jews out of Germany, not to kill them all. And that was Hitler's policy in 1938. It wasn't in 1941. So he had changed his mind 6 months before the Mufti had actually got to Germany, and they had that November 28th, 1941 meeting. And so if you actually look at Hitler's reply, because there's a German record on this, to the Mufti on November 8th, he says, all these things. He says that Germany murdering the Jews was already a policy decision that had already been made. So he didn't know that, the decision had been made, but it hadn't been enacted. The Mufti didn't know that it had been enacted. Now, July 31st, 1941, Reinhard Heydrich of the SS, the Nazis, he had received a directive to prepare for the total solution of the Jewish question. That's evidence, direct evidence that in July 31st, 1941, that is when the Holocaust, the decision had been made, at least before then. They're saying prepare for the total solution of the Jewish question, therefore the decision had already been made, and now they're saying get ready for the decision to be enacted. That's July 31st, 1941. That's about 5 months before the Mufti even gets to Germany, before that November 28th meeting. So the implementation of the final solution, as Hitler called it, had begun immediately after the invasion of the USSR on June 22nd. So they invaded the USSR on June 22nd. June 22nd, 1941 is when the Holocaust began. That's when Einsatzgruppen squads began rounded up and shooting Jews by the thousands as troops advanced into the USSR. So it had already started. It had already gone, since June. The construction of death camps in Poland had already begun. So they were constructing the death camps. The order had been given to, get ready for this. They've been rounding up the Jewish people on June 22nd by the thousands. The same day that they invaded USSR. So they're attacking Russia, at the same time they're attacking their own countrymen. Now, the Heydrich, he sent out invitations for the Wannsee, the Wannsee, W-A-N-S-E-E, the Wannsee Conference, the meeting of high German officials from all involved ministries that discussed the implementation of the final solution when it convened in January. So he comes in the middle of all these conversations. He comes in the middle of, essentially a very important time in history. But the final solution had already been decided on June 22nd when they invaded Russia, and then Poland. They had already constructed death camps in Poland. The orders had been given out to prepare for the final solution, and then the invitations for that January final solution meeting had already been sent out too. So they had already said, hey, we're going to have this final solution meeting. So this all says that the Mufti did not convince Hitler to do the Holocaust. Hitler had already decided to do it on his own accord. He told Reinhard Heydrich on July 31st, June 22nd, he told his goons, his stormtroopers, to kidnap all the Jews. Thousands of Jews were kidnapped already, and the construction of death camps had already begun. And then the invitation for the final solution meeting, the Wannsee Conference, the invitation's already been sent out. So the way I could see it happen is, the Mufti says, hey, we hate the Jews. Yeah, we hate them. You should do something about them. Well, we already made a decision to do something. Okay, then we're good. So I can see something like that. I can see that's why there's some truthiness to Netanyahu's. That's why people are pissed off, because it was like it's bad history. But you could kind of see something like that happening because the Mufti was an anti-Semitical piece of shit, and so was Hitler. So although the Mufti, al-Husseini, had asked for it, Hitler didn't want an Arab revolt. He didn't think one would succeed. So he didn't give the Mufti the one thing he wanted, military arms to lead an Arab revolt. Eventually the Mufti's going to be a propagandist, and then he's actually going to come back and fight in the 1948 war. So he's a wandering man. He's in Egypt. He's in Syria. He was in Germany for a while, and then he just, dies, I think, a pauper with no power and no influence. Now, and he was called the Grand Mufti. So he was somebody in Palestine in 1921. The British are the one that gave him the title, the Grand Mufti. He was actually put in prison because they said he inspired a revolt. He inspired riots, so he incited riots and went to prison. But then he got pardoned the next year by the British, and then was given a promotion. So I guess the British were trying to win the Arabs over, and they give him a promotion, and they give him a title of Grand Mufti. And so I don't, a title is supposed to make people feel good, but it's free, and it's just an illusion. So, and Mufti, that doesn't really signify anything scary to me. Oh boy, here comes the Grand Mufti. Oh no, the Grand Mufti is on the case. Oh boy, sure that investigation is going to go well. The Grand Mufti's here to save the day.
Graduates from high school, 65 out of 100 now need something beyond high school, and we should provide for them to be able to get that education. That's why there should be free community college, cutting in half the cost of college. That's why we should be in a position where we do not have anyone have to pay back a student debt when they get out. They're making less than $25,000 a year. Their debt is frozen, no interest payment until they get beyond that. We can't put people in a position where they aren't able to go on and move on. And so, folks, there's a lot we can do, but we have to make continuing education available for everyone so that everyone can compete in the 21st century. We're not doing that now.
As the youngest guy on the stage, I feel like I probably ought to contribute to the generation.
As part of Joe's generation, let me respond. The issue, if I may say, is not generational.
Please.
The issue is not generational. The issue is who has the guts to take on Wall Street, to take on the fossil fuel industry, to take on the big money interests who have unbelievable influence over the economic and political life of this country.
So for Adolf Hitler and the Mufti, Hitler thought that when he got to the Middle East, when he got to Arab lands and then started to, the Nazis he thinks could win, but he didn't think, he had no confidence in the Arabs, so he felt that the Nazis could had some kind of movement, and then the Arabs could jump on board. So he was not forgiving the Mufti anything that he wanted, and, he wasn't convinced to do the Holocaust because of the Mufti. Now, Germany, Adolf Hitler just hated the Jews from, the bottom of the pits of his stomach. So he just, an uncompromising war against the Jewish people. So obviously the national home in Palestine would be a target. So at the present, somebody's writing this, it might be the Mufti, I'm not for sure. But this is what they're explaining, the thought process of Hitler. So at the time, Hitler, he thought that he was in a life and death struggle between the two citadels of Jewish power, Great Britain and Soviet Russia. Soviet Russia were atheists, and Great Britain is Christian. But the two citadel powers of Jewish power for Hitler was Soviet Russia and Great Britain. Great Britain, why is it so great? Just frickin' Britain. You cheaters make everybody say great, even though, anyways, ideologically the war was a battle between National Socialism and the Jews. And Germany would, of course, help others involved in this war of survival or destruction. And Germany, Hitler said, in an unusually frank statement of what was about to happen, was resolved step by step to ask one European nation after the other to solve its Jewish problem, and at the proper time to direct a similar appeal to non-European nations as well. So eventually Hitler was going to come public with his Holocaust message and try to get all the nations of the world to get rid of the Jewish people. So, Mufti come to Berlin, right in the middle of power plays all over the place, 1941. That's actually, a few days before the World War II, before Japan drops a bomb, December 7th, 1941. So just one week before Pearl Harbor happens, the Mufti was talking to Hitler. And so that's 1941. Just a lot of stuff's going on in 1941. So he didn't have, much influence on those major decisions. He didn't say anything about, telling Hitler to go ahead and Holocaust millions of Jews, most of them Polish and Soviet nationals who had already come under Hitler's control. And what he wanted was to start a revolt. He wanted military arms to fight against the colonial powers in the Middle East. He wanted to fight against the British. He wanted to fight against the Jews in Palestine. And he said he also hated the communists. So therefore, the enemies of, the friend, what's that saying? The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And so, therefore, because the Mufti and Hitler both didn't like the Jewish people, nor the English, nor the communists, therefore they should be natural allies. And so, in a way, they were natural allies. But yeah, Netanyahu's a fucking lying piece of, he's a racist, right-wing, warmongering piece of shit. This is propaganda. His history's wrong. This is fake news. He's a goddamn liar. Netanyahu is a fucking liar, okay? Why do politicians have to lie? This took a lot of research to find this out. Why do politicians have to lie? It'd be so much easier if they just told us the truth, wouldn't it?
Ms. Williamson.
Well, one of my first phone calls would be to call the European leaders and say, we're back, because I totally understand how important it is that the United States be part of the Western Alliance.
I'm trying to get one or two words here. I hear you. Governor Hickenlooper.
I talk about constant engagement, and I think the first country I would go to, and I understand they've been cheating and stealing intellectual property, would be China, because if we're going to deal with public health pandemics, if we're going to deal with all the challenges of the globe, we've got to have relationships with everyone.
Mr. Yang, we're trying to squeeze in a couple more things before we go to another break. Mr. Yang.
China, we need to cooperate with them on climate change, AI, and other issues. North Korea.
Thanks for the quickness. Mayor Buttigieg.
We have no idea which of our most important allies he will have pissed off worse between now and then. What we know is that our relationship with the entire world needs to change, and it starts by modeling American values at home.
Okay, Mr. Vice President, I'm trying to be quick.
We know NATO will fall apart if he's elected 4 more years as the single most consequential alliance in the history of the United States.
Senator Sanders.